Have you ever had that experience where everything in life seems to be going as planned, yet you simply aren't that happy? You're plugging along, usually pressed for time, going to work, raising kids, spending time with family, and it just feels like same stuff, different day. And at some point it dawns on you, I'm really not that happy doing this. Is this all there is? This can be a particularly scary thought, especially when things are going reasonably well. Hi everyone, I'm Trevor Sullivan of Sullivan Associates Clinical Psychology. And today's video topic is, if life is so good, why am I not that happy? This is part one of a two-part video. Before we get started, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. And if you're watching on YouTube, click the alert notification. That way, when we release more videos, you'll get notified. When you think about life in broad terms, the goal for most people is simply to be happy. But if you aren't that happy in your daily life, you're probably wondering, how do I achieve it? In this question, it can be particularly daunting if you've tried different things, such as starting a new relationship or owning more things to try and feel happier, and discovered that it didn't necessarily lead to long-term happiness. Fortunately, the research has a lot to say about strategies that can help. So let's get started. The first strategy I'm going to discuss is the importance of being grateful. As a psychotherapist, it's common for me to ask clients the question, what's going well? And when I do this, I often get a look back that conveys, nothing, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But if you really dig in, chances are there are probably quite a few things going well. Often there are important areas in life, such as physical health, mental health, relationships with family and friends, career or school, hobbies, living in a great country like Canada, and so on. With these areas of life, if you create a habit of focusing on what's going well and feeling grateful for 5 to 10 minutes each day, this can help you to feel happier. In a 2003 study by Dr. Robert Evans and Dr. Michael McCullough, they asked study participants to write down 5 things they were grateful for during the past week. And this exercise was completed 10 times over the course of 10 weeks. And what they found is that being grateful resulted in a 25% increase in happiness. Now that's impressive for such a small time investment. And one way to potentially amplify this effect and create even stronger feelings of happiness would be to recall a period in your life when you didn't have something that you're currently grateful for, but wished you had. For example, there could be a time in the past where you're struggling with a physical health problem, and it's no longer a serious concern today. So I encourage you to take a few moments every day to identify a few things that you're grateful for. And remember to shake it up. If you always robotically list the same things, you risk falling prey to gratitude burnout, and it will lose effectiveness. The second strategy that I encourage you to try involves accurately evaluating your expectations. If I could only pick one area to help improve happiness, this would probably be it. Happiness suffers when there's a gap between what you expect in an area of your life and how you perceive things to be, or possibly how things are. How predictable is this? In a 2014 study by Dr. Rob Rutledge and colleagues, they developed a mathematical equation tested on over 18,000 people worldwide. And this helped to predict moment-by-moment happiness. And guess what the most influential factor on happiness was? You got it, it was expectations. So it begs the question, is this the key to happiness? To just set expectations artificially low and hope they're met? Not exactly, but we need a better plan for setting and evaluating expectations. So let's take a look at a 5-step plan for evaluating expectations, but doing it in a way that helps promote happiness. First, it's important to realize where you have expectations in your life. In doing so, you might be surprised how many areas there really are. But regardless of the number, I encourage you to write them all down. Second, once you assess if there's a gap between your expectations and how things currently are, do they match up well? Do your expectations exceed how things are or seem to be? Or are things actually better than what you would reasonably expect? If it is, chances are you're pretty happy in that area of your life. Third, in situations where expectations exceed how things are, do you have realistic expectations? If not, how can you adjust your expectations in a way that serves you better? Or simply put, can expectations be comfortably lowered to better match the thought of the situation. Fourth, inevitably, you'll find an area where you feel the expectations are realistic, but they still aren't being met. This leaves you with two choices. You can think differently about it, or you can act differently. For the think differently part, you can acknowledge there's a gap between how things are and how you want them to be, and utilize acceptance, because it's something you can't change, or possibly find some logic that can make it easier to change your thinking. For the act differently part, you can do something different to try and narrow or eliminate that gap altogether. So let's go over an example to help make this breathe a little better. Let's assume you're unhappy with your physical conditioning. One way to think differently about this could be to simply massage thinking a little. And this could involve telling yourself that physical condition is simply not a priority in your life right now, so you need to lower expectations in this area. Or that expecting to be the same condition now as you were at your peak might be unrealistic because of advanced age or time constraints. However, if thinking differently isn't narrowing that gap between expectations and your thoughts, it's time to do something differently. For instance, you can decide that it's time to begin prioritizing healthier eating, or making time in your schedule to exercise more. With this approach, changing your actions can help positively change your physical conditioning and narrow that gap between your expectations and the reality of the situation. And lastly, create self-talk statements to help manage feelings of frustration and unhappiness. There's still a little bit of a gap between what you're expecting and how things are. Now, for my third strategy for improving feelings of happiness, I encourage you to find joy in everyday experiences. When you think about it, most of our lives are going to be spent doing usual things that people do. Eating, cleaning, working, socializing, just to name a few. Given the amount of time these activities take, it's wise to do your best to live in the present moment and experience as much joy from these activities as humanly possible, no matter how ordinary or mundane these things may seem at the time. Nowadays, with the popularity of social media, many people feel the need to document many aspects of their lives online for everyone to see. Well, this might be pretty bewildering and even annoying to some. Turns out this can be a good thing for happiness. New research shows that we gain a surprising amount of enjoyment from looking back on everyday moments. In a 2014 study by Dr. Ting Zhang and colleagues, they asked 135 students to create a time capsule that included things such as a recent conversation, the last social event they attended, 3 favorite songs, and so on. And when the students opened the time capsule 3 months later, they found that not only did they underestimate the enjoyment that they'd experience by revisiting these items, but they rated the items as being more meaningful to them than they initially predicted. So I encourage you to not only be present and enjoy the moments, but take time periodically to do things such as look at old photos, spend some time on YouTube listening to a few songs from one of your favorite years, look at some artwork your child made when they were younger, or take time to read a message that someone's written to you in the past. And of course, social media platforms like Facebook randomly provide memories for you to view. And if you get a memory or from someone or something you'd rather forget or forgot to delete, you can reframe it and be grateful that you're past that difficult time in your life. For my fourth strategy, it's important to accept that setbacks and challenges are part of life. One of the most difficult parts of life is to accept that bad things will happen, especially when hardships occur in bunches over a relatively short period of time. When this occurs, it's important to be aware of our individual rules about setbacks and challenges. If the rule reads something like, I can only be happy when things go well, or I can't deal with anything else going wrong, you have rules that will inevitably lead to feelings of unhappiness. Instead, you want to make peace with the fact that life is full of setbacks and challenges, and simply view them as part of the human experience. In fact, one of the inconvenient truths about life is that there are setbacks and challenges we need to learn and grow. For example, how do children learn to walk? They fall down thousands of times, until eventually they develop the proper knowledge and coordination to learn how to walk. And this pattern, it persists throughout life. We're designed to make mistakes and experience setbacks so we can learn, grow, and get better. And as we get better, we can have, do, and be more than we are now. While we're going through tough times, the goal is to be as happy as possible during the process. And if you're wondering how to do that, let's take a quick look at the research. A 2011 study by Dr. Joachim Stober and Dr. Dirk Jansen identified 3 primary coping methods for dealing with setbacks. First is acceptance. It's important to simply accept that setbacks will happen, as opposed to being surprised and either frustrated or disappointed each time they occur. Second, use positive reframing to help find positive meaning from the setback. Reframing is another way of saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Or said another way, what can I learn from this setback that will help me or someone I love in the future? And third, find humor in your situation whenever possible. And keep with the theme of old sayings, there's a saying that goes, one day we'll look back on this and laugh. When the situation is appropriate for laughter, the sooner you can make that day show up, the sooner you can start to let go of the negative feelings and begin to feel better. For my fifth strategy for improving happiness, it's important to have a reasonable level of self-acceptance. And if you're wondering what I mean by self-acceptance, essentially it's the ability to accept all aspects of yourself, whether positive or negative. With self-acceptance, you're trying to come from a place of feeling good enough just because, as if it were a basic human right. For those who struggle with this, I've often asked clients if they could imagine holding a newborn baby and saying, hey kid, don't feel too good about yourself. We don't know if you're going to be worthwhile or not. Of course you wouldn't do that. You'd expect that a baby or young child would feel good about themselves just because. But as we get older, the viewpoint typically changes. We should all strive to accept ourselves as we are. This doesn't mean we can't strive to make improvements in life, but it's important to acknowledge that we have strengths and weaknesses just like everyone else, and make peace with who you are. Otherwise, you're likely sensing yourself to feel unhappy. In a recent survey of 5,000 people by the charity Action for Happiness, it was found that self-acceptance was one of the top 10 happy habits. Yet study participants reported they put the least amount of time into achieving this. So how can you get better at self-acceptance? The research in this study suggests 3 ways. First, be as kind to yourself as you are to others. It sounds simple, but most of us don't do this. Second, ask a person you trust about what your strengths are. Most of us have a friend or family member who will tell you the truth, so you have some evidence about strengths that you can feel good about. And third, spend some time alone and simply practice being at peace with yourself. Slow down your breathing, minimize the noise, and remind yourself that you typically roll out of bed each day with the intention of being the best version of yourself that you can be. This area is a particularly important one to spend time on, as you'll spend a lifetime with this person. If there's one place to invest time, it is well worth it to spend time getting comfortable in your own skin. And for my 6th and final strategy for today, I encourage you to be social. This one could also be viewed as another fundamental need, no matter how introverted someone might be. We all have a need for human companionship. How do I know this? If this weren't the case, we'd all live alone in the bush with a shotgun, telling people to move along at the first sight of another human being. Yet most of us don't do this. We have partners, families, friends, and live in communities. Not to mention, why did social media explode in popularity? We are social beings by nature. And certainly the pandemic has clearly shone a light on the decline in mental health as socializing in person decreased. In fact, in 2006, Dr. Chris Tatch and Dr. Sonia Lyman-Birsky completed a study with 5,000 participants that focused on identifying which strategies people use to increase feelings of happiness. And what was number 1 on the list? Being social. And for some, when life gets busy, this is one of the first areas we let slide, as it seems there's no time for family and friends. Needless to say, this is an area of life where you want to create some time. One of the best ways to do this when you're busy is to weave time with family and friends into your usual daily activities. For example, you can make a plan to go to lunch together, invite family or friends over for dinner, or invite someone along for company while running a few errands. And of course, it'd be a good idea to set aside some time at least one night a month to get together and make sure it happens. Like many things in life, you're only limited by your creativity. And think about this for a moment. When was the last time you were socializing with a close friend or a family member and didn't enjoy yourself or thought, geez, we really should do this more often? Time doesn't stop ticking. I encourage you to make this one a priority. So I'm going to wrap up today's video here. I'll be back with 6 more strategies to help increase feelings of happiness in part 2 of this video. But to provide a quick recap, the first strategy for improving happiness is to take time each day to be grateful by prioritizing a bit of time to focus on what's going well. I encourage you to focus on bigger areas such as health and relationships, as well as smaller areas such as getting together with a friend or recalling a great view of nature you might have seen earlier in the day. Second, it's important to evaluate your expectations in a way that helps to promote happiness. Simply put, it's important to have your expectations align with your thoughts or the situation at hand. If you're unable to do that, it's important to change how you think or act, because the wider the gap between the expectations and the thought or situation, the more unhappy you'll be. Next, I encourage you to find joy in everyday experiences. This can be accomplished by being present, enjoying the moment, as well as taking a bit of time to focus on enjoyable moments from the past. For my fourth strategy for improving happiness, I'd encourage you to accept that challenges and setbacks are a part of life, instead of being highly upset and discouraged each time they occur. I'd also suggest reframing setbacks as challenges that you can overcome, which will ultimately make you stronger. Fifth, it's important to have a reasonable level of self-acceptance. Without self-acceptance, it's very difficult to feel good about yourself or anything that you've ever done, and this will significantly restrict your ability to feel happy. And for my sixth and final strategy, I encourage you to be social. We're all designed for connection, and even the most introverted of people need some form of consistent social connection to feel happy. So I hope you found these strategies helpful for increasing feelings of happiness. If you did, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel by clicking the subscribe button below. And if you ring the bell, you'll be notified the next time we release a video. And of course, feel free to like and share the video. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section, and I'll do my best to respond in a timely manner. If you're experiencing challenges implementing the strategies in the video, please contact us at Sullivan Associates Clinical Psychology. Thank you for watching. Be sure to watch part 2 of my video topic, If Life is So Good, Why Am I Not That Happy?